Miko. Ciao, Miko. I learned how to say hello in Italian, and I'll tell you why. Because I borrowed a very special book from a very special person, and this is the second time that I borrowed this book. The book is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And I said, ciao, Miko, because when I think of meatballs and spaghetti, I think of all that great Italian food. So this book I borrowed from my great nephew, Teddy. So I'm wearing my G shirt today because he calls me Aunt G. So I first borrowed the book in 2020 and read it aloud on Zoom for my school and for him. And now today I am borrowing the book again, and it's 2024, and I'm reading it to you here on Stories and Songs with Gigi. So let's look at the cover of the book. It looks like a lot of fun. It is written by Judy Barrett and drawn by Ron Barrett. So let's go ahead and get started and see what happens in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Okay, we were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we each could eat. And Grandpa was doing the flipping. So there's a picture of Grandpa flipping the pancakes and all the other action going on in the background. This has some great illustrations. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed toward the kitchen ceiling and landed right on Henry. After we realized the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. There's the pictures. Again, some great illustrations in this book. Look at the pancake on Henry's head. That's so funny. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us that the best all tall tale bedtime story he'd ever told. Across an ocean, over large, huge, bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay a tiny town called Chewandswallow. So here's Grandpa telling his grandchildren a bedtime tale, the best ever. And over on this page is the tiny town of Chewandswallow. In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores and houses and trees and gardens around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and assorted cats and dogs. But there were no food stores in the town of Chewandswallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chewandswallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, at lunch, and at dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. Wow. Look at those cool illustrations. The little town and the man over here waiting for, probably breakfast, maybe dinner. He has a suit jacket on, but maybe he just likes to dress fancy. Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. No choices. But it never rained rain. It never snowed snow. And it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. Oh my goodness, look at all those hamburgers. You could just go out and grab as many hamburgers as you wanted to eat. Again, really great illustrations in this book. The people could watch the weather report on the television in the morning, and they would hear a prediction of the next day's food. When the townspeople went outside, they carried plates and cups, glasses and forks, spoons, knives, napkins with them. That way they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, there usually were, the people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals, which I always do. Look at all those great pictures. The man, what do you think that is? Soup in an umbrella? That's crazy. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny side up eggs moved in and followed by pieces of toast, butter and jelly sprinkled down on the toast. Most of the time, it rained milk afterwards. For lunch one day, frankfurters already in their rolls blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans and drizzled soda and finished off the meal. Look at that. What do you think? Would you like going outside and just grabbing a hot dog right out of the sky? I don't know. Might make life a little bit easier. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times with occasional ketchup, periods of peas, baked potatoes, and followed by gradual clearing, with a wonderful jello setting in the west. The sanitation department of Chewandswallow had a rather unusual job for sanitation departments. It had to remove the food that fell on the houses, the sidewalks, and the lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so the soil would be richer for the people's flower gardens. Look at that. Over here is the sanitation department. On this page see the jello setting in the west. So the dogs and cats are over here waiting for whatever leftovers they get because that's what they eat. Our dogs would like that. I have 3 dogs. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worse. The headlines on the paper reads, "Spaghetti ties up the town." Oh my goodness. One day there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. The next day was only broccoli, all overcooked. And the next day, there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Another day was a pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. Oh my goodness. Now, I like broccoli and Brussels sprouts. I'm sure many of you don't. But I wouldn't want my Brussels sprouts with peanut butter and mayonnaise. Yuck. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. On Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls. All day long and into the night, there were soft rolls and hard rolls, and some with seeds and some without seeds. There was white bread and rye bread and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone was staying indoors, roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. To help out, people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close school. Oh my goodness. Here's a picture of all the rolls in the water and the birds eating the stale rolls. Look at that huge pancake on the school. My goodness. A lot of crazy things happening in the town of Chewandswallow. Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and at the end of the day, they had stomach aches. There was an awful salt and pepper wind accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. My goodness, here they are eating the cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. They probably were good in the beginning, then they ate too much and got a tummy ache. And look at this tomato tornado. That's crazy, huh? The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. So the decision was made to abandon the town of Chewandswallow. It was a matter of survival. Look at all those. There's big donuts, hamburgers. My goodness, look and see what you can see on these pages. Wow, a lot of really crazy things happening in Chewandswallow. Let's see what happens next. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread sandwich style with peanut butter, took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on their rafts for a new land. Look at those details. Here they are making their rafts, and here they are setting sail for the new land. Let's see where they end up. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town, which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well, enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change that had to be made was getting used to buying food at the supermarket. They found it odd that food was kept on shelves, packages and boxes, cans and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked and kept in a refrigerator. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit in the head by a hamburger again. And nobody dared go back to Chewandswallow to find out what had happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his good night kiss. So here are the people in the new coastal town. That means a town that's along the ocean. And over here is Grandpa with his grandkids finishing up the story. And it was such a good story that they didn't fall asleep and they listened to everything. The next morning, we woke up to see snow falling outside of the window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate it a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sledding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes. So here they are waking up to the snow. Nothing like a snow day when you're a kid. And here they are sledding. And they're using their imagination. The sun rising looks like a giant pat of butter. And there's Grandpa up there waving. And because their imagination is so good, they think the snow smells just like mashed potatoes. Because maybe that's how it snowed in Chewandswallow. And that is the end of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. That was a fun book, and it's a fun book to be able to stop and look at the details in the pictures and see all the crazy food that was falling out of the sky. Use your imagination. What would it be like if it snowed hot dogs and hamburgers and giant meatballs, and you would just go outside and grab that hot dog right out of the sky and maybe get a cup of soda to wash it down. So much fun. Thank you for tuning in to Stories and Songs with Gigi, and I hope you enjoyed our book today. And today I'm going to say adios, amigos. I will see you soon. Thank you for tuning in.